Okay, good afternoon. In a lunch slot that or in a presentation time slot that I typically qualify as the Delta or KLM moment. You might wonder, why do you say that? We'll get back to that shortly. So my name is Klaas-Jan Tucker. I work for Adobe and involved in a lot of scoping of work that we do between Adobe and Microsoft, and how can we make the life of our joint customers better. And on the Adobe side, I specifically focus on how do we work with data and data across all of our solutions. I know we are at Ignite, and that probably you're all fired up already by 4 days of content, or maybe even 5 days of content. One thing in this slide, I don't have any code. So if you're looking to get code out of the slide or anything, then feel free to get up and find a different one. I don't want to, let's say, mess up your expectations there. But I do want to walk you through where I think things are going, and if you have lived in the Microsoft space, where the world might be getting more complex or might be getting simpler. So why do I call this a Delta or KLM moment? This is the moment that everyone had a lunch, is coming into a cooled down conference room, turn down the lights, and is going to snooze out. So I hope that you guys are still with me at the end of the flight. So Adobe, literally, even here on the trade show floor, they say, hey, aren't you guys of Adobe Reader? Those continuously pop-up updates, like I need to update again. Or even Adobe Flash, like, yep, that's us. But that's not only us. If you look throughout the history, we have a huge creative heritage. I think whatever you see out there, even all the Ignite signs, all the designs are made, has been touched by Adobe. But about, I would say, 10 years ago, we started to transition into a whole new space of not only taking those designs, but starting to interact and build the facilities to interact with consumers and the brands for our customers. So on the right-hand side is basically new acquisitions that we did, or new solutions that we built purely in the space of what we call digital marketing. And if we talk to customers in the space of digital marketing, we tell your brands, your consumers are on Twitter, on Facebook, they're online, they have a lot of information. And you cannot just say, oh, what I do today drives revenue, let's stick there. So staying where you are is really not an option. And I think if you look throughout this conference, we all look at the future and new technologies. But at the same time, if you talk about transformation and things like digital transformation, you cannot just flip around one switch and consider it done. It's an all or nothing game. And when we say it's an all or nothing game, it's not about just looking at a silo or slice of data within your company, but it's about looking at your company and your data holistically to drive that marketing. Interestingly enough, I've been with Adobe since 2008, and when I joined, this was already the tagline for Adobe, and it's still valid, changing the world through digital experiences, whereby we take two primitives in our company, content on one side, and data on the other side. And of course, content has everything to do with expression, everything to do with art. And data, why are you working with data? 2 days ago, I spoke with a prospective customer that says, oh yeah, no, we're collecting all our data in a Hadoop instance. Great, why do you do that? No ID, it's an IT requirement. We just have to put all the data in there and it's there. Okay, we go one step further. We look at the science of data, analyze the data to get actionable insights, and the word is in action. You can identify that a customer is spending less with you, but you want to respond on that. So, experiences start with great content, I don't have to call it out, and are driven by data. So let's look at a little bit of an experience.
Target's been neutralized. I'm heading to the hotel. Checking into the penthouse. The name's Hunter.
Certainly, Mr. Hunter. I have your reservation right here.
Wait, did you say Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't have a Hunter.
But you emailed the confirmation to my watch.
Well, marketing handles emails. Oh, I have a Hanson.
No, it's Hunter.
Hunter.
I picked my room on your app.
Oh, we have so many apps.
But I'm a Platinum member. And I even have a promotion from your website.
Promotions are on a different system, but I do have a single on the ground floor, Mr. Hanson.
It's Hunter. My name is Hunter.
So, it's a tongue-in-cheek video, but you all checked into a hotel. You all, day by day, live the hospitality industry and deal with brands. And I hear laughs, probably because some of the statements do resonate. Yes, we don't have everything in one place. We don't have the same perspective of the customer. And both as a consumer and the companies that we work for, this is actually reality. Not to this extreme, but I think the statements are there. And if you look from a consumer perspective, and just let's step out of our professional world, go to the world where we are, 6 p.m. tonight at Universal Studios, you get a lot of impulses at you. With those impulses, you expect the businesses that you deal with to, number one, know you and respect you. Don't wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a promotional push message. That doesn't work. Respect me. I'm sleeping. The second part, we saw that clearly, speak in one voice. Promotions in one system, websites here, we see that as well. My wife all the time says, hey, why is the promotion that I get in store not the same as on the website, and why are they not connected? Speak in one voice as a company. And of course then, the next thing is make technology transparent. We live in the IT space. We know how to deal with computers, we know how to deal with devices, we know how to deal with digital touchpoints. But the average consumer doesn't want to think about, oh, I saw this on the phone, so it must be this. Don't make them create that connection. It should be whatever service, whatever area you work across. And then finally, delight me at every turn. How wonderful is that moment that you show up at the hotel, like I did at Sunday night, I think it was 1 a.m. in the morning, flying in from the West Coast to show up at the Hyatt and say, sir, you arrived at the right moment because we just opened up the block for room upgrades for our red-eye flights. Like, great. So we'll give you a little suite. Sweet. So that is literally delight you at every turn. But what does it mean for a business? Well, number one, context. Understanding when you're dealing with a consumer and where, sending the right message. Number two, designing for speed and scale. We have to deal with a large number of consumers. Look in your dynamic system. Look in, let's say, all the data that within companies are being shuttled back and forth inside of Excel sheets. That's a lot of people that I have to interact with, and I cannot do that at once. And I only have one moment to deliver you the right message, and that needs to be done in a millisecond. I cannot say, hold on, let me wait. I'm going to get you the promotion. Imagine you're on a call center, waiting for that wait music. That's a nice moment to talk to you. I cannot wait. That needs to be done in a second. And then finally, I think this is where the biggest challenge for every organization is. Integrate to innovate. If I talk to customers and say, okay, you have all your marketing data in the Adobe stack, but where does your customer data live? Oh yeah, no, that lives over here. Sometimes I say Dynamics 365. Good, where is your ERP information? Oh, that lives over here. And if your customers file a complaint, oh yeah, no, we handle that in a whole different way. So to get one customer view to deliver that perfect offer, you have to integrate those systems and get those insights. So integrate to innovate, and I think this is where we will be focusing way more. So let's put them side by side. On the left-hand side, what we're looking for as a consumer, and on the right-hand side, what businesses have to do. And whenever you have conversations around this in your organization, put this picture next to each other. It doesn't matter whether you are in consumer packaged goods, whether you're in retail, whether you're in hospitality. These things are always the same. It doesn't matter even when you're in healthcare. This is also still very important, but in a slightly, let's say, different way. But the core principles do work. And this is where Adobe Experience Cloud comes in. Like Dynamics, it's a suite of solutions focused at a specific task. It allows you to interact with consumers depending on whether it's on your own site, media, owned media, or whether it's paid media, whether it is through email, SMS, and we look at the full stack. And literally, I think every Fortune 500 company has at least one Adobe solution running beyond, let's say, the standard Photoshop. It's one of those solutions that's here. I'm not going to go run through all of these solutions. We will dive into one particular use case shortly. But all of these solutions represent marketing data. And one of the things that we work on inside Adobe is basically to build a common foundation under these solutions, which we call the Adobe Cloud Platform. Adobe has grown in this area through acquisition. So asking our customers to integrate and to continue to integrate with the solutions is not the right thing. But at the same time, our ecosystem, Microsoft developers, partners, want to integrate with us as well. And the Adobe Cloud Platform is basically the next big investment that Adobe is making towards the future. And this is where we are here at Ignite. Microsoft and Adobe together started on this partnership. And this partnership is basically going beyond, oh, we've got great solutions over here and great solutions over there. It's about how do you tie those two together. This morning I was co-presenting in a session with Microsoft around their common data service. The room was filled with people that work on data. What they do every day is figuring out how does the data look like? How does it go from A to B? How do I let business people work with it? So within the Microsoft Adobe Alliance, we are combining the worlds of marketing and sales. Sales, everything related to the Dynamics 365 environment, supported by the Office 365 environment. Adobe, all about, as we saw, creativity and deep engagement with consumers, and they go hand in hand. Well, if I look in the offices where I worked in the past where sales and marketing were, sales was over there, marketing was over there, and what connected them was sending files back and forth, Dropbox, OneDrives, and everything else. Oh yeah, and a lot of, let's say, water cooler talk to figure out what do we actually need to do. And this is where that center part comes in, where I think we will be better together. Because organizations today have a number of challenges. Number one, how to engage with your customer, whether it's on the digital or the non-digital area. Number two, how to combine marketing and sales campaigns. And then, if you combine data, you can already see that person coming out of legal and compliance and saying, hey, why are you sending back and forth Excel sheets? We're not supposed to do that. It's not compliant. Let's use a system that does it in the right way. But with that, compliance also is driven by industry. If you would ask any organization in Europe right now, what is the number one thing regarding data compliance? They will answer you GDPR. It's an industry data regulation which gives more control and power to the consumer to tell an organization, tell me what you have about it and I want you to stop using it. So all of a sudden, complete new governance rules need to be put into place. These are things that in our Microsoft Adobe joint relationship, we're putting at the core of the solutions moving forward. And then finally, everything around AI, machine learning, handling big data, detecting patterns. And of course, we've got great teams already out there who are working with this, but Satya ended his keynote with quantum computing, where you might think like, okay, that was a little bit off. But what the transistor did to computing, that thing in the back that has to operate at 4 Kelvin, will do to our computing, allowing to be able to process large amount of data, allowing to detect patterns. And we need to be ready to go down that path. So in this partnership, we're building basically a vision for the future of the enterprise, your enterprise, the organizations that you deal with. And it's based on two principles: leadership in design, document, and digital marketing solutions. And on the other hand, world-class CRM, a robust and scalable cloud platform, and a very strong ecosystem. At Adobe, we don't want to build a new Azure, Amazon cloud platform stack. We want to enrich what our customers need to do, but now based on Microsoft technology. So looking for synergies, value, reach, technologies. I had conversation with partners that says, great, we had a Microsoft practice, we had an Adobe practice, and we were already talking to each other because we saw this happening inside of it already, and now we can actually collaborate. And leveraging that third-party ecosystem around applications. So if we look at that collaboration, it's separated in two things. Things that we can do today, right now in the market, and Manish shortly will talk about that, and things that we're looking at for the near and long-term future. And some of that work, you need to start at its smallest core and allow it to grow through both of the organizations. And that is where shortly the common data model and the experience data model will come in. Because the investments that we're making strategically are basically a cloud-based and a cloud-native offering that allows customers to interact with both Microsoft and Adobe solutions, where the data inside of it speaks each other's language. And you don't have to go over and over again, like in Excel, almost adjusting the column headers. Setting it up for much more experience and AI work and analysis, and to drive innovation within our joint sales and marketing ecosystem. So solutions today are around Web Experience Foundation, campaign orchestration, and sales acceleration. And if you want to know more, visit our Adobe booth or ask a card so I can introduce you to the appropriate people. But to deep dive on a use case, I want to focus on campaign orchestration, because that is the most visual case of where we are tying dynamics to the world of marketing, and we're basically sending data back and forth. Next to the campaign orchestration, we have done a lot around integration of Adobe Sign. We're working on Bing, SharePoint integrations, all wonderful stuff. But let's focus for now on campaign orchestration. So Manish, please join me on stage and walk us through what it actually means.
Thank you, Klaus-Jan. So, we just talked about the Adobe Experience Cloud and how you can actually really tie all of that data and really build the experiences for your customers that you're going to be leveraging, especially with the Microsoft and Adobe partnership. I'm going to deep dive into a use case of campaign orchestration and walk you through one of our core products that's integrated with Microsoft Dynamics 365 in Adobe Campaign. Oh, the other one. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually connect our sales and marketing together. So Klaus-Jan talked about how you can connect those two together to really provide you the full experience where sales and marketing can really connect those data points and touch points together. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the product. I'm also going to walk you through some slides as well. So Adobe Campaign and Microsoft Dynamics. So Adobe Campaign is our cross-channel campaign management solution within the Adobe Experience Cloud. It executes channels across online and offline channels, and you have the ability to actually segment your data and cross with CRM. It's one of the core solutions in the Adobe Experience Cloud that allows you to engage with your customers on a one-to-one personalized message. And you can also set up your emails, you can set up your SMS, you can go online and offline as well. In today's demonstration, I'm going to walk you through three personas. Many of you guys who are Microsoft partners or customers may already know these three personas, who may have seen them before, but I'm going to walk you through Alex Wu, Brittany Duncan, and Swen Mortensen. I just want to get a raise of hands here. How many of you guys are currently using Dynamics 365? And are you guys using any marketing automation tools or any type of tools out there that leverages email? Are you guys doing online channels or offline channels or both? Online? Okay. And are you guys, when you guys are, is it more like B2B use cases, B2C use cases? B2B? B2C? Okay. So what's great about Adobe Campaign, and I'm going to walk you guys through this, is that we can do both B2B and B2C. And that's what differentiates a lot from a lot of our competitors in this space, especially the ones that do plug into CRM solutions out there. It's the ability to actually execute for both types of channels. And it gives you the additional power and insights, especially when you're driving some of those experiences from the rest of the Experience Cloud. So as I walk through these three personas, you're going to get a better idea of how that's going to work out. But before that, before we dive into the demo, I'm going to talk a little bit about why Adobe Campaign and Microsoft Dynamics. It's truly a cross-channel campaign orchestration. So as I mentioned before, you can go online and offline channels. You can integrate your data, so you don't have to necessarily just integrate with your CRM. Where the additional value that comes in with a campaign management solution like Adobe Campaign is the ability to pull in maybe your additional second or third party data that you might want to tie in to your profiles. You might want to bring in some point of sale system data. You might want to pull in some transactional data that might not be sitting in your CRM system that you can leverage directly in Adobe Campaign and then use that in Campaign to connect that with your sales team, so your sales team see all of that data and transactions. And in that way, they can contextualize the conversation when they're talking with their customers. We have flexible deployment options between both Dynamics and Adobe Campaign, so we can do an on-prem hybrid deployment along with with the capability of doing full-in cloud. And both solutions have been strong with our analyst leaders. So a lot of Gartner and Forrester reports out there have shown that Adobe Campaign is one of the strongest products in the campaign management space. So this is kind of a busy slide, but it just kind of explains to you really how from a CRM perspective, from the data layer at the bottom, how it kind of goes up and consumes through Campaign, and then through some of our other Experience Cloud products as well, such as Media Optimizer, Target, Experience Manager, et cetera. And this is how we're really consuming all of that data from the CRM space and from some other solutions that you guys might have integrated to the Experience Cloud to provide your customers that additional experience. So we're much more than just marketing automation. We're layering on top of that analytics, paid search. We're also doing things like audience managers, where we're leveraging second and third party data. We're also providing CMS solutions that can be integrated with the rest of our products, such as Experience Manager, where we can do sites and assets, et cetera. So let's go and get into the fun stuff. Okay, so I'm Alex Wu, and I'm actually decided to go onto a Bing search, and I'm interested in 3D printing solutions. So I'm gonna come up with my Bing search, and on the right-hand side I see a display ad from a company called Contoso. So Adobe Media Optimizer is one of our solutions that actually does paid search and actually manages your display searches as well. And in this case, we can position a display ad that comes onto a search based on maybe some behaviors that might be tied from our Audience Manager solution, which can link up your second and third party data and also anything that you might have had in your search history as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this display ad. And I come to a landing page on the PK388 3D printer. So I'm interested in this printer. I'm looking at it. And I'm about to download some specifications on that. And then I come to a gated landing page. So this gated landing page can be built in Adobe Campaign because you have the campaign, you have the ability to build landing pages in Adobe Campaign, but we also can pull in your sites, your landing pages from Adobe Experience Manager as well, which is our content management solution. So you can also build that out as well in here also. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and start filling out the form. And then what I'm trying to do here in this scenario is really provide you some additional context on some additional information that we're going to collect, and we're going to pull in this form, and we're going to create what we call a profile in Adobe Campaign. Once I go ahead and download it, I come down here, download the product specification. So and I decide to step away. I'm reading my I'm reading my email. Let me quickly go in here, logged me out. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my email. So while I'm actually, I went ahead and stepped away looking at the product, and I logged back into my email, I actually see an email that came in from Contoso. So based on my download, they were able to, go ahead and find me in Adobe Campaign based off my email, and then I actually triggered an email out directly to Alex, thanking him, for filling out the form, and not only that, but also providing an additional information on the PK388 for the printer. So he can go ahead and watch a video, learn a little bit more about the PK388, and we're actually now starting that conversation with Alex. So now Alex is starting to get all of his information together from not just from the email, but he's also able to get all that information from the specifications. He's doing his own searches. While he's doing that, I step aside and put on my wig, and I actually now going to be Brittany Duncan. And I'm going to actually log into Brittany Duncan, and I come into Adobe Campaign, and in Adobe Campaign, you actually have your campaign management solution, which you can actually manage your calendar, you can plan programs, you can set up your landing pages, you can set up offers. That has the ability to set up offers in real time, especially to your customers. You can also manage some resources as well. In this case, I'm going to refresh this. And I see that Alex Wu, or a customer similar to Alex Wu, popped in here. And I'm looking at what I'm looking at right now is that integrated customer profile, that single view of the customer across both Microsoft Dynamics and Adobe Campaign. In this case, we're looking at it in Adobe Campaign. This is more of a visual representation to show you exactly how the data is really being collected in Alex Wu's profile. So in this case, you can actually look at any of your profile information. You can pull in additional loyalty data. If you wanted to, you can link up some of his preferences, such as email, direct mail. You can also set up frequency and marketing pressure within Adobe Campaign. So you can start setting all these different behaviors and start triggering emails and execution based off of this profile. In this case, I'm going to go into a CRM tab in a CRM dashboard. And Alex was a cold lead, but now we see that he created a new account, he downloaded a PDF. So we were able to assign some scores to him, and now he went from a cold lead to a warm lead. Now Brittany wants to turn him into a hot lead, so she can give it to Sven Mortensen, who's been calling Brittany every day asking for hot leads. Like, hey, give me a hot lead in Dynamics. So right now in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to build out a lead nurturing campaign. So in Adobe Campaign, you have the ability to build out a customer journey. So you can build out we have a canvas where you can actually orchestrate a workflow, where you can actually use your queries. You can actually go ahead and build out like some additional data. You can import lists. You can also go ahead and set up subscriptions in Adobe Campaign. You can also manage your deduplication in here as well with some of your data. So how many of you guys have issues today with CRM, duplicate data, especially in your marketing automation? And especially, how about your data management pieces? All right, how are you guys able to manage? You guys have some challenges with managing the data between CRM and what you guys are currently doing in marketing automation? So in this case, you can actually manage a lot of that in Adobe Campaign to make sure that you have the right data before you push that back out into your CRM solution. So in this case, what I did is I've gone ahead, built out this nurturing campaign. And as you can see, I can also do it across multiple channels. It's not just online, but offline channels like email, direct mail, mobile. You can do it through call center, and then even open channels. So we've even done it in the B2C world with like travel and hospitality. If you're logging in to a, to your kiosk when you're actually checking into your flight, you can actually push offers and messages in real time to that customer based on their orchestration and their behaviors and their information that you have in the system. So we are open channel because of our API capability to be able to integrate to pretty much anything out there that's driving an experience for that customer. And then we can also automate that process as well. And this is where the automation piece where you can schedule, you can set up wait times. So in this case, I'm gonna run this workflow. And then what we're doing is we're looking at he opened a thank you email. So we know that Alex opened a thank you email. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna invite him to Contoso community. So we wanna engage him with the blog, get him more information on the PK388 and some of the other offerings that Contoso really has. And then if he joined a community and he's an active member, we're gonna say, okay, I think he's good enough in the nurturing process that we can send him a sales call invite. And if you send him a sales call invite and he accepted it, now I think he's a hot enough lead that we can send back into Dynamics. And as you can see, we can go back in here and you can see that he turned from a hot lead to warm lead to a hot lead. And you can see an email click through and you can see that he's created a new account and he's joined a new community as well and wants a sales call invite. So now he's the right person to push back into Dynamics, and this is where we have our Dynamics connector. So we're synchronizing with Dynamics, and in this case, what we're doing is we're gonna go ahead and select a lead and push that directly into Dynamics. And what's great about the CRM connector in Microsoft Dynamics, with Microsoft Dynamics, is it allows you to integrate directly with any of your standard tables or any custom entities that you guys might have in Dynamics. So you have the ability to select that over here. You can also manage and map any of your custom fields that might be mapped to those custom entities as well back into Adobe Campaign. So it's all customizable based on your brand and how you're going to be working it with your data model. So you can map that there. You can export it. You can also import from Dynamics as well. You can actually query the data and then pull that data directly out of Dynamics into Campaign, and then map that to your recipient profile that I just showed you earlier, that integrated customer profile, where it can pull in some of the sales-based behaviors also. Now that we've mapped it to Microsoft Dynamics, I'm going to go into Dynamics, and you guys are familiar with this, some of you are. In this dashboard here, you can actually manage your sales activity dashboard. You can also look at your marketing dashboard as well, so you can look at your marketing pieces also. So if you're interested in seeing like any of your KPIs and what's going on within Adobe Campaign, you can manage that in Dynamics as well. Now I'm going to go into our leads real quick. And in our leads, I'm going to go ahead and pick Alex Wu's profile. And in Alex Wu's profile, as you can see, we've seen that he's a hot lead. And then now, what we've done is we've been able to actually pull in his marketing history, which is great, because now we're able to pull in all the history that's happening with his marketing interactions and touch points. Whether it be an email open click, he may have looked at, may have gotten a direct mail piece. He may have gotten, may have gone on web analytics. So if you have Adobe Analytics and you're triggering some sort of abandonment cart or some sort of analytics piece or tag or segment, you can push that in directly into the customer profile and make that visible here in Dynamics as well. What's nice about this is you can actually preview the email too, because so from a sales rep perspective, they might want to see exactly what content was viewed by Alex Wu, so that way he can contextualize the conversation that he's having. And in this case, what you can do now is he can actually Sven Mortensen can say, hey, this is a hot lead. I had a conversation with Alex. He's really interested in a 3D printer, but I couldn't close the deal now. But I think he'd be good to come into a trade show invitation. So you're allowing marketers to set up 5 or 6 maybe email templates that are available for your sales reps or customer service reps in Dynamics to be able to use and templatize and personalize to the to customers. And as you can see the email right here. You can then go ahead and see that you can execute that directly out of Dynamics, which allows you to really provide that additional layer of personalization and experience for Alex Wu, because he just got off the phone with Swen, and now he gets an email directly from Swen that's a personalized email in his inbox. And as you can see, I'll go back in here, and there's an invitation from Swen on the 3D printer as well, for the 3D printer show. And what's great about this also is with the additional synergies with Microsoft and LinkedIn and the ability to pull in that data into Microsoft Dynamics, we now can use that data in Adobe Campaign for your marketing purposes. I think that's a really powerful combination we have with our partnership, especially with LinkedIn and being able to pull in, tie in those data attributes, especially for like a lot of B2B marketers out there as well. They're trying to tie in some of those, understand the job history and things like that that's going on with those customers. So that shows you exactly how the integration happens and how we connect sales and marketing together. But what I'm about to go back into Campaign again, and now Brittany's like, wow, that campaign was really successful. Because that campaign was successful, she's deciding now that we've not only built the nurturing campaign, but we can now build in a customer onboarding campaign where we can give him tutorials, we can give him warranty information, we can go ahead and, based on expiration date on those warranties, we might be getting additional data feeds that might be on service reminders for their 3D printer. So we can now actually then start building more experience for Alex in that sense as well. And then finally, you can also start cross-selling, which adds additional value. So we've gone from lead nurturing to more of a customer onboarding to an upsell, cross-sell program where we can actually build out, based on his customer preferences and how strong of a customer he is already in the system, we can then start sending out information on cartridge replenishments or additional accessories that might be available out there. But that really shows you how we can tie our sales and marketing together with an Adobe Campaign and Microsoft Dynamics. Get back to the slide. No, I think it's one, right? Oh, this is one. Easy. Sorry. All right, cool. So just to recap, what we saw today is the data synchronization from a file for Microsoft Dynamics 365, and then we were able to integrate. So this is what we have in the near term. And what we're going to now talk about is the Adobe Cloud Platform.
Thank you, Manish.
Yep.
So Manish showed a very, to me at least, clear and articulated use case that's happening in almost every marketing-driven organization that has now also centralized sales information in one central place. No handoff back and forth, like can you run a report from your email campaign website so I can import it into my CRM system. No exports from CRM systems so I can import them into a different system. But this was easy. This was just one CRM system dealing with one marketing automation tool for one channel. What happens if we want to have a person land on the website and then say, hey, you just bought this printer, but we have some wonderful add-ons as well? This is what we call the next best offer. You always need to keep in mind, I just sold something to a consumer, what am I going to sell him next? If you deal with credit card companies, if you deal in banking, if you deal in retail, if you deal in, let's say, hospitality, there's always this next best thing. And it's not only on your own property, but it's also happening if you, for example, go to a website that does banner ads. You might think, hey, they're continuously following me. Yes, they try to deliver you and seduce you to do that thing. So how can I reach you also outside of my own properties to do and convince you to buy that next best offer? So within the cloud platform, we are actually building the whole infrastructure to build a what we call 360-degree perspective of a consumer as it relates to giving you the right offer. Not about, hey, I printed this promo from the website, or I saw it in my mobile app, but really making it come into one place. That when you land at a website or want to deliver an ad, that we can say, who is this consumer and what matters to him? But to fuel that profile, you need a lot of information. And in that profile, basically, things come together. So the cloud platform drives integration. It's going to work with our ecosystem because we don't own all the touch points with the consumers. We actually don't want to own all the touch points with the consumers, but we want partners who own touch points as well to integrate with it, as well as drive innovation in the space. We've already heard left and right that voice interaction is going to be the next best thing. Actually, I'm thinking that I'm part of an experiment right now. I'm from Dutch origin, that's where my accent is from, so some of the time I'm looking at the translation and see, that's actually pretty damn good about how to translating my language. So I'm just waiting for it to hook up and say, hey, can we go to the next slide? No, not yet. Okay. Not part of this experiment. So within the platform, actually, voice-driven interactions are something is, let's say, top of mind. How can we drive those? What are the interfaces that we need to deal with? So core services to interact with. And then XDM. Because so far, Manish has done all the clever work together with the CRM part. And says, oh, what this field like here, then that field like there, oh, those look like first names. Well, you have those languages where they look like the reverse, I don't know. That like there looks like a city, and that's a zip code. And you're continuously mapping data back and forth. And I said, let's tell the easy case. So let's dive deep in that a little bit later. Driving intelligence everywhere, as well as making it real time, are the important parts. So a stack diagram, because I think every presentation needs to have a stack diagram. This is ours. As said, we live with two principles, content and data. And also content I can express in a data model. Manish was using content inside of Dynamics 365. The salesperson wanted to know what that content was and maybe where it's even originating from. Even to go further, the marketer might even want to know what imagery in the content was used and if we even had the right license to it. So the moment you start picking on one piece of data or content, there's a whole set that follows. And there you have that compliance person in the back again. Are we still compliant? Can you tell me? Can you prove me? Yes, all that overhead. And then on top of it, of course, machine learning and capabilities through Adobe Sensei. And to integrate with it, I think we have got a great component inside of Adobe called Adobe I/O. I don't need to explain a developer or a partner what it means. Basically, it's your door into Adobe. So if there's one takeaway from this, and if you're more in the development space, and hey, forget about all those UIs, how can I use your APIs? Go to adobe.io, and you will see, and you're ready to go. And then, of course, a client-side activation platform to measure and collect all the data in one place, core services, and our cloud solutions on top of it. And actually, we want our partners, we want the ecosystem, the joint Adobe and Microsoft ecosystem to integrate on that tab level with those services. And this comes back again to, I don't want the customer over and over explain what data we have. So let's dive into experience data models. I think every organization has done some attempt of data standardization. At least, let's standardize on the language that we're going to use. Good, that's step one. Now let's standardize on the labels that we stick to our data and how it can look like. So do we within Adobe. Because it doesn't matter if you use Campaign, Analytics, Experience Manager, there is the same language within the experience business. But we also learned that that's not only what matters, what's coming from Adobe. We saw that's what's happening in Dynamics 365 CRM is important. We also know what's happening in the call center. That's important. And how am I going to bring these two together? So let's look at that experience data model. And here we go from the very visual representation that Manish had in, yes, we can understand. Let's remove all the machinery and talk about what is it actually that we care about. And the technical representation of the experience data model is actually from our perspective right here. Internally, you can see us having two large stores. Content on one side, it's your images, your assets, your composites, where you take assets and images and put it into a PDF document, or put it into a web page, or put it into an email. That's the left side. And they're exposed through what we call content services. If you're using Photoshop, if you're using Illustrator, InDesign, any of the tools, you can interact with those content services so they're in one place. In the content world, we have worked very hard on what is called, and now it escapes me, the extensible metadata model, where people can add, for example, to TIFF images, who is basically the creator, who is, what's the source. And that's actually being used today within, for example, photography for newspapers. The New York Times pays newspapers based on the size of the image used, as well as the metadata they express in that asset. So that's living on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I wish we only had, let's say, images, pages, and outputs. The world of data is so much more complicated that we'll see what matters to us in the first place, and then where we want to start to collaborate. And then, if we remove the UI, it's basically systems interacting through APIs. Whether Manish drags a component on his canvas that says, send this data to Dynamics, or whether I pull data from a call center application, or I take data even inside from Adobe Analytics, that is handled through an API and delivered. But if I open up that packet that's part of the call, what's in there? Well, that's where the model comes into place. We think about our API infrastructure as the verbs, and the models as the nouns that are implemented. So let's take it one step further. If a business person comes to me and says, hey, Klaas-Jan, can you tell me what standard models should I be thinking about in the experience business? Well, just look through all of these individual model definitions, and you would say, yeah, I can imagine what a phone number is. I can imagine what a campaign is. I can imagine what an engagement frequency or a propensity score is. But how does this relate? What's the big picture? So let's look at that big picture. Ever from the moment we saw Mr. Hunter entering the hotel, continuously you can keep this in the back of your mind. I want to deliver an experience to someone. That is what I want to deliver, the experience. That someone is represented by the who. I'm Hunter. Sorry, can't find you. I'm Hunter. And then, what is it that I want to deliver to you? I want you to book a room. I want you to go and basically buy that extension to your printer, or maybe even sign up for a new credit card. Those are the what's. And then finally, through what channel are we going to do that? When and where? It might not be the right moment to say, get a free drink at Universal Studios. We are not there yet, we are not ready. But the moment you take the bus tonight and you land there, you might want to have that offer right on your phone screen. So understanding the context and then the when and where is important. So let's flip those around and look how we treat those from an Adobe perspective. Number one, the who is represented in a profile. And a profile is like a fluid experience. There's not a single time that it's always the same, because your interests are changing over time. Then the what is represented through an offer. And an offer might be a simplified word for if you order this, free shipping, but I'm talking more about the abstract thing, the thing that I give you in exchange for something of value. That's the commercial transaction that we try to work to. And then finally, the when and where I can express in a rule. You saw Manish on the screen put a lot of rules in. If someone accepted this email and clicked on this link and is also in this database, do this. That's all the rules that drives that next step in that experience. So the profile is basically composed of what we call facts, statements on one side, and basically computed values, inferences on the other side. So let's look at facts first. We have to deal with fast-moving facts and slow-moving facts. Let's give you a slow-moving fact. My birth date is not going to change. I think I can typically say that for everyone, our birth date is not going to change. Then gender, well, I cannot say gender is not going to change. You can change gender. Last name can change as well. It's very likely if we get married, last names do change. So you already see that it's more likely to change. What does change, for example, is an address or last known location. Those are things tied to my profile which can rapidly change. And we have to keep that in mind. Some of those elements are coming out of a CRM system, coming out of, let's say, engagements with the brand, and we call those engagements touchpoints or events. The fact that I put in an order, I can say, hey, yes, you ordered this and we shipped it to you. Okay, that's an order, but it's basically a historical behavior that I had with your brand that is changing the way you look at it. If you just bought that printer, I'm not going to offer you that printer in an ad again. That would be stupid. But I use that information in your profile to give you the add-ons. And then we have inferences. Things like loyalty score. I stayed at a hotel a number of times. I have accumulated a certain set of points. And my point balance is basically an accumulation over time. And the fact that with 70,000 points I hit KLM Platinum membership, that is my membership level. My membership level is reflected again in profile. That was an easy one. Now let's do a different one, propensity scores. What is the stickiness of this customer to a brand? And that is where machine learning comes in. So this is the area of research and the area of, let's say, engineering where Adobe is focusing on. But as you understand, this is not only something that we have, but it's commonly driven by all the data points that live in the experience business. So a logic one here is Microsoft. And we'll shortly talk about the relationship between CDM and XDM. But at the same time, we acknowledge that there are way more industries and partners out there. And every time at a booth or here at Ignite or other locations, we start talking about the challenge of data, people say, oh yeah, no, we have that as well. So let's complete the story. On an offer, we have to deal with the actual creative, the pictures that are created, the photos, the pages in InDesign, or maybe even a completely 3D printed and designed element that I'm going to ship to you. Yes, you can do that today with Photoshop. You can create 3D models as well. And of course, what's the channel that's going through? And then finally, what is the moment and how? And triggers and segments are very important elements in the marketing industry. So all of a sudden, and I took Manish's very simple demo and start dissecting it in what makes this actually trigger. So now bringing it back to the scenario where we wanted to have data flow from one system to the next, and inside of our Adobe infrastructure, we need all this information related to the consumer to drive the right experience. The moment you say, hey, I'm now going to bring in a data set from a customer, you shouldn't have to go in and say, this is the first name, this is the loyalty information, this is the loyalty level. This was the time we did a call transaction. This was a call bounced. This was a call picked up. This was a call confirmed. The moment you can assign that data into model definitions, the moment you bring it into either the Adobe infrastructure or the Microsoft infrastructure, we know how to treat it from that point on. And associated with the data, you can start to qualify PII identifications. The moment I see an email address, I can qualify that is PII sensitive. Be very careful in where you're going to use that. Otherwise, my compliance officer will come out a corner again and say, why are you treating PII information correctly? And the compliance officer is someone that I want to deal with in a very effective way. So what we're working on is a dashboard basically that shows you data that progresses through the system as being used for marketing campaigns, Source is CRM, output is here, and this is how compliance was enforced. Instead of having you as a marketer or as an IT admin going through and basically pulling up, this was the Excel file we sent, this is what we sent, look, it's still compliant. So, and then of course, there are the basic things that we need. Lookup information. What's the product that we sold? What's the hotel room that he got to? What is basically the physical location that this was done? And you can imagine many different lookup informations from here. And then the final bit. This is already a significant undertaking within Adobe. We've been talking about this for 10, 15 years without talking about an actual data model. We just do it. Hey, it's in our brains, it's in our heads, isn't easy. But the moment you want to have systems interoperate, the moment you want to have customer systems interoperate, and I would almost say, if I take your implementation, 80% might be the same, but 20% is totally different. So how do I allow you to gain speed on those 80%? Because you can standardize on something that's in the system, but give you the freedom of adding that 20% to it. So model extensions, model versioning are things that we are working on right now to bring that in. And in collaboration with my colleagues in Redmond on the Common Data Model team, that is part of the Common Data Service in the business applications, we are looking at what relevant elements in Common Data Model do we need to incorporate in our experience data model. But also, the moment we start doing things like Manish showed, sending engagement data back, you want to understand what those data points are about. So all those things that I showed around profile and interaction and an experience that we do, a delivery, is going to end up inside of Microsoft Azure or maybe the Common Data Service, so that your data analyst can pick up, use Microsoft Power BI to do analysis. And Power BI leverages the Common Data Model to surface to you what fields there are and their relationship. So the moment we tie those two together at the hip, our ultimate goal is to make your life a little bit easier. And we have to make your life a little bit easier, but we know that while make it easier, more complexity will be added by adding new channels, new regulations. But more important, your boss and my boss is going to expect that the next campaign, the next thing we do, will be done in at least 50% of the time than we did it before. So let's make sure that the things we do become repeated. So where are we in this process? Model definitions and model discussions can be like, okay, long-bearded guys wearing sandals, sitting in a room, discussing with each other. And sometimes it is like that. And if colleagues are listening to this recording afterwards, sorry for pointing it out that way, but yes, sometimes it is like that. But at the same time, we take a very pragmatic approach in what do we need to go where. And to show, let's say, progress, to show what we're working on, we are going to highlight what is going to happen in the experience data model. How do all those models that I just spoke about be represented? I just showed you the colorful dots, the entities that we see first. In fall, which is soon, actually technically it's already fall, I think now for about a week. So very soon you can go to adobe.io/XDM and find a preview of where we're going with XDM and its relation to CDM. More important, when we get closer to Adobe Summit next year, we're planning to ship our first marketing cloud solution, Adobe Campaign, running on top of the platform, powered by XDM and CDM. So that means you can now take data coming from 365, running through a native connector into the Adobe Cloud Platform. And when you set up the connector, it knows what are the fields that are there. Adobe Campaign is automatically going to take those fields and implement the profile on their end to make it happen for you to interact on. That's the very first proof point of this vision working. And as we send the information back into Dynamics, that engagement data is expressed in XDM, and the Microsoft Common Data Model is going to understand that as well. And this, I think, will be a very long journey. Already yesterday, someone came to me over dinner and said, hey, Klaas-Jan, we are doing a similar effort in the financial services industry. We're trying to consolidate an identity. We're trying to figure out how we can do one unified representation about a consumer state. How can we contribute the relevant elements to make this happen for anyone in the financial service industry? And I think this is a very nice trend across the board, where the power is not us defining what we think it should be and then letting you use it. I think the power is in us starting to define, share it with you, capture your input, and get into a collaborative model of driving this forward. So if you're interested in this space, please keep an eye on adobe.io/XDM in full, or grab a card from me at the end. I'm happy to continue the conversation. So where are we heading from an Adobe perspective? Number one, the Adobe Cloud Platform that we do is going to be fully built on Azure. We will leverage whatever they have today, but also influence their roadmap to advance the world of big data, but the world of big data applied to marketing. Making sure there's this additional set of metadata, compliance, as well as data flows for marketing. So of course, it's data-driven. The real-time aspects are important. And with real-time, you need to operate as close to the consumer as possible. If that consumer is located in Australia, the services need to be as close as possible there in a lightweight representation, what's in a heavyweight environment. And the Azure environment allows us to distribute on a global level and bring the data as close to a customer, also compliance-wise. Open and extensible. I totally believe that we have strong people at Adobe. I run into people and say, man, you're smart. But what I believe as well is that there are way more smarter people outside of Adobe. How can we leverage, how can we collaborate and let you build on top of what we do and bring that to our joint customers? So that's open and extensible. And then finally, time to value. As consumers get more and more impatient because I can order my Uber and it will be here in 5 minutes. If it takes longer, I'm opening the Lyft app. Also, our managers are becoming more and more impatient because why does it take so long to implement these? Why does it take so long to execute this marketing campaign? So time to value, not only for Adobe solutions, but also time to value for the people using it is something I think that is the ultimate goal, and reduce it where we want to go. So thank you very much. That is the last slide where I want to end off. We are still nicely within the time boundaries, and I would like to open up for questions, if there are any. And otherwise, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the Ignite conference.